Welcome to the Japji Sahib podcast. In this episode, we'll be going through the 18th Pauri stanza given to us by Guru Nanak Dev Ji. We'll be looking at some of the more negative actions, but where do those actions come from? That's what we'll be focusing on and looking at in today's episode. And today we have with us Harpreet Kaur. So, Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So we'll get straight into it, and we'll start with the first line where Guruji is saying that Asankh Moorakh and Chor. So if we just break down some of these words here. So Asankh is countless, which we've already gone through in the previous episode. And then here, Guru Sahib Ji saying Asankh Moorakh. That Moorakh literally translates to a fool. So saying here that countless people are fools. But Guru Sahib Ji help us to understand who a fool is. And I think that's really important, because often what happens is that we'll use words like this, and we'll probably find ourselves calling somebody a fool, or even ourselves a fool. But our focus is on that person or ourselves being that fool based on looking at the current action that we're doing, or the action that we're doing. So if we see someone being a certain way, doing a certain action, and within ourselves we'll say like, oh, what a fool, or what a fool I am. But here Guru Nanak Dev Ji saying, what is it that makes, where does that come from? And they say and Chor. So anda literally means blind, and then Chor can be translated to, literally Chor means something that's really deep, but here we've translated it to utterly. So if we just look at the literal translation, it would translate to countless people are fools, utterly blind in ignorance. So the blind here is referring to being ignorant. Again, we often use that as a term, as somebody being ignorant, but Guru Nanak Dev Ji is defining for us that it's when somebody's ignorant, when somebody's completely just utterly blind, is when they end up becoming a fool. And then it's that fool that ends up doing such and such, which is what we're going to be going through today, where they end up becoming a certain type of person and have certain negative, or they carry out certain negative actions. But what does it mean to be ignorant? Because we might just say somebody, they haven't got a clue, they're just ignorant. But when we say that, we're referring to somebody being ignorant just for that certain something. So I might say that, Harpreet just doesn't know about that cup. She doesn't know it's that it can break easily. So she's just ignorant of that fact, and that's why she's just slamming it onto the worktop. But this isn't talking about being blind about just one specific thing. Guru Sahib Ji says all of this happens when we're ignorant about who we are. When we have separated from our true self. Guru Nanak Dev Ji, there's a line where they say, Pranavat Nanak, they ask a question. So they say, Pranavat Nanak, and here they're asking this question to Vaheguru. And Pranavat means when you just put your hands together. And so he's saying, Pranavat Nanak Gyani Kaisa Hoye. And they're saying that, like, what is a Gyani? Who is Kaisa Hoye? What type of nature does a Gyani have? And the word Gyani here, how would you translate the word Gyani? If you used to just hear that word, knowledge. Yeah, so we often hear this word Gyan and we relate it to knowledge. And in Gurbani, I think we spoke about this before, that in Gurbani, the word, when Guru Sahib Ji uses the word Gyani, they are referring to somebody that knows. not like intellectually, but knows anubhav with experience. Guru Sahib Ji saying that gyani kaisa hoye, what is the nature of somebody that knows? And they say aap pachane bujhe soye. Somebody that has recognized themselves, that have had that self-realization. And bujhe soye, Maharaj says they are the ones that truly bujhe and understand Vaheguru, understand God. And this is what Guru Sahib Ji is saying. These are the people that are blind. So once you're blind and you haven't got that understanding, so if we haven't got any recognition of our soul, we're going to be living out of ego. And when we hear the word ego, it's got such a negative connotation to it. People don't often want to use that word for themselves or somebody else because they feel it's offensive. But if we are to understand in which context, when we're using that word, it's important for us to not kind of run away from the word if we want to cure ourselves. So ego is when I'm stuck and consumed in a certain identity. Yeah. And when that's all that I know, and I don't know anything else other than that, and I just think that's all that there is, that's called not recognizing yourself and being blind. Yeah. So I don't know, is there something that comes to mind when you think identity for yourself? What's one of these first things that maybe comes to your mind? Because
you think like your job, so what job you do. So I'm a nurse, and then with Guruji's Kripa, trying to be Gursikh, work towards that.
So yeah, so if we just looked at that, so one of the first things you said, let's just look at the nurse part. So that's your identity. An identity can be the work that we do, being a nurse. Yeah, and so these are all things that we have taken on at some point. We've not always been that. Yeah. So when did you start practicing being a nurse?
With Guruji's Kripa, I was 2000 and...
Well, you was going to say I was like 2.
No. It's I did my degree.
But apparently you always had these traits of a nurse from when you was very young. So maybe that's not that inaccurate of being 2-3 years old. Is that right?
I don't know. That's my family. I did my degree when I was 2009 to 2012. So that's when, and then I obviously officially became a nurse in 2012.
Yeah. And then, so there was a point in your life when you took on that identity. Yeah. And then you became that nurse. And then, but before that, you didn't have that identity. And what happens in life is at times we become over-identified with something. And that identity can start to consume us. And if we was to break anything down, any identity, if we was to break down any form of pain or hurt, it would come down to one of these identities. And we've all got multiple. And with some of them, we've ended up becoming over-identified with them. And when that happens, it's like living out of this little box, and we forget about the vastness of this creation and Vaheguru. And that's what Guru Nanak Dev Ji is saying, is that's what it means to be completely and utterly blind, is when you think that's all that you are, and you have no recognition of your soul, and that Vaheguru is everything and around you. When that happens to us, that's when then we end up doing certain things in our life which then can be referred to as negative actions. Yeah? So if we just took a really simple example of how that could start affecting someone and how it could start making them do certain things in their life. Yeah, when they're stuck in this and they're completely ignorant. And we could work through some of these panktiyan and then go through what it is that people then go through. So it's just like, if you imagine, you're just kind of stuck in this little box. You can't see outside of that. And if you could probably think of many examples in your own life when you've felt frustrated or angry or anything. What if you broke it down? What was it that was feeling angry? Like, what was it that was feeling hurt or frustrated? Because this is something I do with myself every day, and this is a body that's always stuck out for me. I'm talking about from 12, 13 years ago, and I think when I probably started not when I didn't focus on it so much was when, for me anyway, this was very personal, when I found that I was stuck in some of these things more. So I would always try and reflect back to, but what is it? What is it that's hurting? And I'd keep asking myself that question until I'm able to like break it down and think, oh, okay. Sometimes it wasn't easy and I wouldn't be able to find that answer straight away. But this is what it means to be a fool. Mara says, if you don't kind of find that, it's going to lead into all sorts of things then. Yeah. And it's that separation then from the truth and Waheguru. And then we just think this is all that I am. That starts to then hurt. So whenever that happens, it's like when one of our, I don't know, I think, well, for yourself, like, especially when your kids start to grow up, they challenge you a lot. You know, they can challenge your identity a lot, which is the identity of being a mother or a father. And, or it could be as a daughter or as a, as a wife. And especially, when it comes to kids, they'll speak to you a certain way. When they do speak to you a certain way, and in that moment it hurts, all you have to do is just step back and think, why did I hurt? And I think these conversations can be difficult at times because we think, well, because we use terms like, well, that's normal. Of course, it's normal. What are we going to say after that? It's normal because you're a dad, or you're a dad, you're a mother, or the other way around, because your parents said something to you a certain way, or the husband said something to you a certain way. And the natural thing to say is going to be, oh, yeah, I'm a wife, I'm a husband, but if you think about it, that in itself is telling us the answer to why we're hurting. It's the identity that hurts. And that identity is what Guru Sahib refers to then as home. And that is what causes separation. That is what causes then pain. And this is what Maharaj is saying on the Koor. When you are just in that and you become consumed. And I always say, all right, so what would be an antidote to that? So if in a real life situation, how could you switch the way you frame it within your own self so it doesn't reach a place of pain? Because pain is separation.
I think reflection's one big thing, but also is recognizing that whatever's caused you that pain, or whoever it's come from, they have their own understanding, and they can only come from what they understand and where they are in their journey of growth or healing. So it's recognizing that as well. So you don't get offended, or your identity doesn't get touched because it doesn't reach your any identity. You just recognizing that human being for being a human being.
And you know what? That's what this body is all about. like Guru Nanak Dev Ji is speaking from that place, is saying that I'm going to talk about this. It's I'm not. This isn't when I talk about this. It's not about me. About how I'm affected, about the way they are with me. This list of people, and Guru Nanak Dev Ji is just saying, Nanak Neech, that I am Neech. Neech here. If we was to literally translate that, that would be translated to lowly. But Nanak Neech here is referring to Guru Nanak Dev Ji saying, well, I'm talking about them and I'm kind of just giving this understanding of other people's state of mind, but from a place of humility, meaning I'm not looking down at them. So that's exactly what you just said then. It's understanding that they are the way they are because of such and such reason, or for whatever reason, they are separated, they are stuck. Yeah. And the other thing is, what we could do in that kind of scenario situation is when we're kind of stuck and we're blind, how would we switch that around? Say in that moment, what's another way we could reframe that is, so before we even go there to them, how can we step away? Say if we're really kind of just feeling stuck, oh my God, this is hurting. And then like, I'm getting attacked, this is about me. But in that moment, if we could just step back, and how do we do that? Like you said, awareness from, this Veechar, from what we're talking about now. Step back and think, all right, so I want to be acting from a place of a Guru Sahib Ji. Somebody asked, like, I'm still trying to find my purpose. And a lot of people, I don't know if you've ever thought about purpose. Yeah. And I get this question a lot about purpose. And somebody asked me that about, like, I'm still trying to work out my purpose. And I was thought, all right, well, even that, shouldn't we, what I was saying to Preacher earlier on, sorry, Sangji, I know he's not on camera today. I'm sure you're missing him. But I was saying to Preacher today earlier on that, whatever it is, whatever terms we're using, and we were talking about, I'm not going to get into that, but just to give an example, we was talking about, like, today we hear a lot about this word healing, I'm healing or we are healing. And I said it'd be really interesting to try and understand that term from Gurbani. Like, what would that mean within, like, through Gurbani? And in that same way, then whatever it is, then even purpose, then wouldn't we be looking at our purpose from Gurbani? And the easy answer would be, our purpose is to meet Waheguru. Like, yeah, like, I get that, but but from my reflection, again, personal reflection of Gurbani, is that Guru Nanak's saying our purpose is to become a Jan, is to become a servant. And that's Guru Nanak, like, that's why Guru Nanak Dev Ji calls themselves a Jan so much in Gurbani. And so Jan literally means servant. Throughout Gurbani, look how many pangtiyan there are, like, Jana Nanak Tood Mange, this Gur Sikh Ki, this servant. Here Guru Ram Das Ji saying this servant, is asking for the dust of that, the idea, and that's our purpose. Is so if we think about it now in that scenario, somebody said a certain something to us, something's happened, but then we want to go back to our purpose in our mind, and that takes us away from being stuck in that identity. Yeah, so then we can just use the identity from a place of a Jan. So we go back to, like, oh, what's my purpose? Is to become a servant. If I'm going to become a servant, how can I use now this identity as this mother, child, whatever it is? But this whole thing is about serving. And whatever that, like as in service, people, again, I don't want people to start, their minds jumping. And that's why I try not to label anything, an action, a certain activity as seva or as service. Because that Gurbani doesn't do that.
Limits it, yeah.
Gurbani doesn't do that. But if we're constantly saying that I want to live out my purpose, and my purpose is to become a Jan and serve. So in that moment, then I'll become that. I'll remind myself, wait, like my purpose is to be a servant, and that mul karidi lalla golla. That I've become that lalla. I'm a golla. So that's my true purpose. And as the droplet I am, we're referred to as the droplets. The part of Waheguru that's inside of us could be seen as the droplet. So that is then the golla. And I'm the golla. I'm the slave then to serve everything else. So in that moment, I unidentify with that, and I identify with as a Jan, as a servant. And I think, how can I serve in this moment? Imagine how much of that life that would make so much nicer. And that's why I always say to people that whenever we are getting guidance from someone or whoever, wherever, does it fit in with the language of Gurbani? And when I say the language of Gurbani, because Gurbani takes us to the true place of healing. And I think we did end up defining kind of that. What that means is then healing is when we're starting to be able to create a gap and distance ourselves in a healthy way from the identity that was hurting so much. Yeah. And we're able to then step closer into the Atma, into the soul, and going back to becoming the servant. And I think that's our purpose. And when we're not living from that place, that's then on the Kooreh. And then Maharaj says, all right, well, this is what then happens. If you're going to just live out of identity and think that's all that you know. Maharaj says, like, now you're blind, and this is what's going to happen. So when we then come from the back of that, of when we're so stuck in the identity and we don't have any recognition of reality of how it's working. And then Maharaj says, this is what you're going to find. This is what you're going to get with those people. And Maharaj says, basically, a fool is somebody that will, then you'll find Asankh, countless people that are Chor, are thieves. And Haramkhor. Haramkhor, the word haram can be translated to, we've translated it here to being corrupt. Haram also can be when you completely ruin something. And so, for example, it could be that you've given me something, but there's no value to it. I don't value it. I completely ruin what you've given me by the way I'm treating you. Yeah, that's a Haramkhor. So it's not like I ruin the glass that you gave me. Yeah, but I ruin it, what you've given me by the way I am with you. Yeah. That's another form of, then it becomes stealing. Yeah. So that's Maharaj says that in itself is chori. I might not have stole it in the sense of taken it behind your back. Yeah. I've taken it from you. This Haramkhor also means there's no appreciation for you. So I've ruined what I've taken. Yeah, it's become haram kar dita. So it's just clicked because my parents would actually speak like this. And so, for example, they've given me a present. They've given me something. And then I've ended up arguing with them about something. Maybe within the first few days of receiving that. It was a big thing, for example. And then I've argued with them. I've ended up being horrible to them. And I'm talking like years ago. Yeah, like being horrible to them, looking down at them, belittling them, whatever. I've gotten into argument with them. And then they've turned around and said, Ki ditta? ਕੀ ਫਾਇਦਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਦੇਣ ਦਾ ਹਰਾਮ ਹੀ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਤੂੰ so they've said like you've just made it complete haram what we've given you it's like you've polluted it, you've just ruined it what we've given you. That makes sense, right?
100%.
It's like you've given me some food as well now, because this is probably something that happens more regularly then. So you've made a amazing like plate of food, sit there, and then I make a really horrible comment to you, but I don't mean just like, oh, the salt ain't right or anything, but I mean I've looked down at you and really belittled you and spoke at it, from a place of arrogance. And then I'm about to eat the food and it's like, nahi ye to haram kar ditta hun. You've actually just ruined the food. Yeah. Ye to chori ho gayi. Yeah, that's like stealing. No? And I think that is such a big lesson in everyday life. And that just comes into being an appreciative as well. And I think that just for me would just now, like just thinking of that could really help me a lot. Because again, when will that happen? Andkor, when we are stuck and we're blind, because when we're blind, what can we see? What is it that we can see?
Nothing. Darkness.
Me. Yeah. That's all that we can see is me. So when I'm going to look down on you, I can't see you. I can just see me. Because it becomes about me in that moment, doesn't it? Yeah. So when life is all about me, then I'm going to look down on you. And then it's Haramkhor then. Like, then that's who I become in that moment.
It's about gratitude. Like, you're saying one of the things that to take away from your identity and these things, if you just you remember to be grateful for everything, even for breathing. It can get that basic, but it's not basic. It just
no, of course,
it centers you.
No, it comes back to that.
Yeah,
so the antriv arth is that. So it comes down to then everything. And what I wanted to say to Sangat was that just for Sangat to know that just doing Gurbani Veechar, how magical it can be, because I personally have tried to contemplate Japji Sahib for about 13 years now, but that's the first time I've been able to look at it in that perspective, like here right now, as we were talking, that kind of just became clearer. That's a way of looking at it, that where jo cheez haram kar ditti, when you've just like ruined it because of the way you've treated and gone about the whole thing, and no appreciation for it, and put somebody else down for it, and that just like you've just become a chor. Yeah. So I'm just saying, like, the magic in Veechar as well. And then from what you were saying, that is then an antriv arth, which is like kind of the more deeper internal arth we can do. We also, when we don't live this life as that Jan, as that servant, like we said, in a place of service and appreciating each breath that we've been given. So with each breath that we've been given, if we don't remember and say, Vah, like, thank you for this life, and then also we are Chor, a thief, because we're taking them for free then. Because even these breath are given to us. And if we don't live in appreciation, we become Haramkhor, unappreciative, and we're ruining the breath in that way. So we're saying, like, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਾ ਖਰਾਬ ਕਰਕੇ ਰੱਖ ਦਿੱਤਾ, ਉਹਨੇ ਇੰਨਾ ਸੋਹਣਾ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਤੇ ਕੀ ਬਣਾ ਕੇ ਰੱਖ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਉਹਦਾ. So it's like gave you such this beautiful opportunity and breath, and look what you're making out of it. Yeah. Sai haram kar ditta. So you've become a Haramkhor. You've become that unappreciative, and you're ruining everything. So that would be like, that's why I always say to Sangat that one line is enough to awaken you. Yeah. It's never about how much you can read, how many you can read. Like Maharaj is saying, I'm only saying try this, read this much, read that many, because I don't know which one's going to do it for you. So in that sense, if we just think, I don't want to be a chore for these breath, I don't want to be just taking them for free, yeah, and then that alone can be something that awakens somebody and starts to remember Waheguru with every breath, just from that one line, and you're done. Job done.
That simple.
It's as
it is that
simple
simple.
It's crazy though. It's like it's that simple, but it's that hard as well.
Hard work to do.
Yeah. So next line. Can you relate to this one? Asankh Amar kar Jaahi Chor. And you might be able to relate to it in different ways, as in like where you've seen maybe some of those traits in yourself at points or in others around you as well. And that's okay if we are reflecting on others as well, because we're not looking down at them, because that's what Guru Nanak Dev Ji is teaching us in this body. So we can still, so Amar here, the word Amar means hukam. So when you're like, when you order someone around, like when you've got, oh, well, this is my order, it's got to be this way. Yeah. So we've used the word will here for Amar, and then kar Jaahi Chor. But then you get that done, whatever your way is, but by Chor, by force. You're enforcing your way upon somebody else. So being very forceful. And you think it's got to happen my way. And this is obviously then where bullying comes from, this being stuck in this. And I think that it's not that hard to fall into that at times in life. And Maharaj is saying to us that you'll only do that again when you're blind, when you're stuck in one of your little identities and you just think things have got to be just my way, but then you go about getting that way put in place, but being forceful. Anything that kind of comes to mind, like
I was just thinking how beautiful Gurbani is, that Guruji makes it relatable to everyone. Like you said, like everyone at some point has done this or been that. It's not to say that's it. Guruji always says there's a way out, and this is the way out. Do it, Yeah. And I'm just thinking, it's just thankful that it's like that.
And when I read something like this, because sometimes people can think, well, aren't we then just reflecting on something, on the negative? And no, and the way I see it is that it helps me to become aware that, am I doing that at times? And I'm like,
wake you up and
like
put the positive back.
I don't want to be doing that. And that is positive in itself.
It is.
And you will sometimes find yourself just wanting your way and being, I don't know, Maharaj here is talking on a larger scale as well, when you go about and then do some really horrendous things, because it's from that place. Maharaj says then, like if you look at the next line, that Asankh Galvadd Hatiaa Kamaahi. And the word Galvadd, we're not translating this literally to cutting people's throats, but the actual term itself, like he's cutthroat, like so ruthless. But Maharaj says that you'll see all these traits overlap. Somebody that will want their way, and then you'll often find that they are quite cutthroat as well. They're quite ruthless. They'll make sure they get that way, however, whatever. They won't think. There'll be
how it affects everything.
Yeah. Hatiaa Kamaahi, but Maharaj says it could even lead to the point of Hatiaa, where people end up killing others, killing other people. But Maharaj is explaining to us where it comes from. When you get so just closed in and stuck. And, like if we look at often when you find someone that ends up in this place in their life, if you break it down, you'll find some form of, event in their life that caused trauma inside of them. But the trauma's not been dealt with. And the trauma is like a wound, an after effect of how we've taken something in life. Or sometimes that could have happened to you at a point in your life when you wasn't able to make sense of it because you was too young. But then as you grew up, when we start then again, when we become consumed by that and we over-identify with that, and it's very complex. It's not just as simple as this, because I don't want to oversimplify it as well, because I know there's so many angles to this and so many situations for different people. What ends up happening when something traumatic has happened to them. But if we was just to look at it in the way that, again, I just hope nobody takes this in a negative way and to think that we're oversimplifying it. But like what Guru Sahib is saying here, that we can only reach this point in our life if we remain blind and ignorant, and if we don't end up unidentifying with certain parts of us and what has even happened to us in the past. If that never happens in our life, we continue just living out of that box and not becoming conscious. This is where it can lead to.
It's like the ripple effect, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you can either put positive and it ripples,
Yeah.
or you can put the negative, and then that's what Guruji is just explaining, the negative side of the ripple.
Yeah, yeah. And that's why I would say it's so important as well. So if people feel that they still haven't dealt with certain things,
to deal with them,
and is to start taking those steps, and again, in a very compassionate way, I say that.
Yeah.
And in whichever form of way you can start that journey, because we just don't know otherwise. We keep, actually it'll become more and more clear if we looked at then the next line. Then Maharaj saying, Asankh Paapi Paap kar Jaahi. So this is what stuck out for me, because before we started this, you said that there's a lot of labeling in this body, and I know you didn't mean it in a negative way, but it was just something you pointed out, and it really got me thinking. And then you guys thought I was in a mood, and I wasn't in a mood. I had that
tunnel vision.
Yeah, I was just trying to say Maharaj, all right, because Maharaj isn't somebody that is going to label somebody in that negative way, because everything that Guru Nanak Dev Ji would have spoke from a place of compassion, place of love. So why then the labels? And I was, contemplating that, because here Paapi is a noun. It's saying the sinner, and but then Maharaj says, like, who is one? So, for example, yes, there's a label there, but Maharaj didn't say that somebody ends up becoming that, where that has now become somebody's personality, and even now has become their nature. I don't mean true nature.
It doesn't write you off.
When I mean when something becomes effortless for someone, and they're so blinded now on the core, they're just living out of that now. What Maharaj is saying is, it's important for us to recognize and identify when somebody has reached that point. When it's this, they're saying, I'm labeling someone from my reflection of this Barney, that I'm not just labeling someone for the sake of it now. It's not because they just tripped up a couple of times, or let's not even call it tripped up, because I don't want it to be judgmental in any way, but somebody did a certain action and that's negative a few times in their life. Maharaj hasn't said they are a Paapi. But Maharaj is saying that who they're referring to here is that Paap kar Jaahi, meaning that keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. So they're trying to get us to understand something, that when somebody keeps making that same mistake, that it's because it's become their nature now. So it's important for us to understand they are a Paapi, but not in that. And you know what it is, because especially I've grown up in like a very, Punjabi cultural I've come from that background, grown up with that. So when you say these words, they've got such a negative connotation to them. as soon as we say, oh, Paapi, it's like, it's said in such a like arrogant way and like kind of like, writing somebody off and looking down of. And that's why I think, and just now whilst doing this podcast, I think now it makes sense why even in Katha, I stopped using the word. But no, I shouldn't stop using the word. We want to learn in which way Guru Sahib is using it. And then for us to start defining it for Sangats, well, this is how Guru Sahib's using it. This is how most of us are using it, though. We're using it from an arrogant place. And we're looking down at people and say, oh, Paapi. It's almost like them. But Maharaj is just identifying all, like even today's people that are talking today about spirituality in today's world. I don't want to name anyone, but they talk about the process of when something becomes, habit and then becomes nature. So all Maharaj is saying is a Paapi is somebody that has done something so many times, they keep doing it, kari jande, and now it's that they've just become that. Doesn't mean you can't escape it, like you said before. Yeah, but we shouldn't also deny that it's become an issue for someone now. Yeah. And that's why it's okay sometimes to have, to diagnose and use a certain label just so that we can understand someone. For me, this body is all about understanding each other. Yeah, so we might have to say, look, they are that, but it's from a place of we're trying to understand why they are like that, because they've done that so many times now. So this is what it means to become blind. So that is now them. That's what's leading their life, and that's when people say, "Oh, see, nothing's in our hands. God's doing everything," and they get that mixed up. It's not that God's doing everything in that way. It means now they can't. They are so stuck. It feels like there is no way out, and this is almost. It feels like it's destined for them. It's not destined for them. They haven't managed to awake from it. Yeah. So it becomes so natural. Don't know it any other way. And that is that Chor then. Like, you just can't help it. It's just their life. Like Bhumiya Chor. That is just so natural to him. Just to steal. And then Maharaji defines it a little bit more. They say, okay, so what can some of those things be that people have ended up then Asankh Kooriaar, Kooreh, Firaahi. So Maharaj is saying, well, there's countless of people then. What are one of those things that they keep doing? And this is Kooriaar. So Kooriaar is the noun. They've become just, compulsive liars. Kooriaar, can mean false as well. So they're just practicing falsehood, but we can, if we break it down, so one of the components of that is being a liar. So Maharaj is saying, well, now they have become a liar. It's important, again, for us to understand that, not to look down at them, but to understand they're stuck at the moment. It's become their nature. This isn't now, so it makes so much sense now when today's mental health professionals say to us and when I did the first aid training as well in mental health, that you don't say to somebody to snap out of it, because they can't just snap out of it, because now it's gone so deep, like their whole body has learned that, and their body is now gonna actually think this is how they need to be to survive. Yeah, so their body will reject if you try and do anything different. So this is when it's talking about it's going to be hard work. Obviously, kirpa can happen like that, but let's talk for the majority. Of how majority will have to go through it. So you can't just say now, just stop lying. Because Maya's saying, no, but Kooreh, Firaahi, now they're going round and round. So Firaahi means when you go round in something, that means they're stuck in something. They're in a loop now. Yeah, your brain's learnt that pattern. You don't even know anything else. You're so blind. You think this is me, isn't it? Right? I mean, you won't even say that to yourself. you'll just think, it is me. Isn't this me? Yeah. Even when you have moments that you escape from it, but it's that is so normal to you because your body's comfortable with it, your brain's comfortable with it. It's got all the, the neural paths that are formed of being that way because you've done it for so many years.
It's the way you survive.
Yeah. Well, you're in survival without you even knowing that you're doing it to survive. Yeah. It's become your normal way of living. Yeah. So I think this body is that can help us to have so much compassion. Maharaj is saying it's not as simple as, oh, stop it. Yeah. But you can break from it.
Break from it and do step in the right direction.
Yes. Even I remember I used to look at this body years ago and from such a shallow perspective. I used to just say to people, well, just stop lying because it's just going to lead to another one because that's what Maharaj is saying. And I didn't realize it's talking about when something becomes somebody's nature. And just, again, I don't mean the nature, soul nature. I mean like...
habit.
Yeah, habit nature. Their habit. And it is going to be uncomfortable in the beginning, and that's what this is all about, is having to go through those uncomfortable moments and of starting to break away from what you've now have believed you are for so long. And it's literally like something's going to have to die within you, and it's going to be painful.
But worth it.
Yes, because then that's where the sukh is when you walk away from it, So then, Benji, did you want to add to that? Just like, as in, because it's talking about just...
There was the only thing
lying.
is that though it can seem negative, this Bhankti, the positive is there. It's Guruji saying, because a lot of people say, oh, well, Guruji, they'll say I'm a liar, so I'm going to go round and round, and then just accept it. But it's not about accepting it in the sense that you don't do anything about it. It's accept it to do something about it.
100%. So this is more about understanding what's happened to us or to someone, and from that place, doing work on it. And
that's where the
accepting just
comes.
means that I understand. I've kind of come to some form of understanding where I'm at. Yeah. And from here, I'm going to work on it. Yeah. It's not giving that would be giving into it. We're not giving into it. Yeah. It's like, say if you had a wound somewhere, a physical wound on your body, and you could feel the pain, but you didn't know where it was coming from. Yeah. And then all it is now, we've managed to identify, look, my leg was cut here. I couldn't see it before because of where it was situated, and now, let's work on it now. So this is what this is. It's saying, let's work on it now. I've just realized what's happened to me. And sometimes I just feel like, it's so hard because it's a body and we've just got to go through, but there's so much psychology behind this, and to break it down, and I feel like I'm not doing justice to it, but I think maybe we could do separate videos and just where that could have come from for somebody to end up becoming a compulsive liar, and what could have brought them to that point in their life, and then what it is. And I think the biggest thing we can take away from this body is to be more understanding to each other, and to know that when we come to realize these things, this is where we are, that we can now start working on them, and there is a way out, but we've got to be very patient with each other, and yeah, like without the patience, I think it's going to be just so difficult. And so then Asankh Moorakh mal Bhakh Khaahi, and Maharaj is saying that not only is it that people would that end up stuck in lies, but Maharaj saying there's countless people when they're blinded and they become that fool, then they become a Malesh. And a Malesh was a word that was used for when the Mughals came and invaded India. So, and bringing in their culture and their language, speaking Persian, the Persian language, Farsi, and where then the people of India who believed only Sanskrit to be the most sacred language, and anybody that was speaking anything outside of that, or that was, and so they would call them Malesh, and the word Malesh itself can be translated like they saw them to be almost like somebody that's low-minded or an outcast, and so but Maharaj said, well, no, it's not somebody that is bringing in a different language in, or you can't then compare to say, well, our language is the divine language, your language isn't. And they were arguing, well, no, ours is, it's, and Maharaj says, no, I'll tell you who is a Malesh, is somebody that is mal. Mal means filth. Bhakh comes from the word, there's many translations that scholars have done, but the one we've gone for here is the word Bhakh, coming from Bhakya, meaning language, and then Kahai means to consume. So basically talking about when your language is filthy. But filthy language isn't the words that we speak. Filthy language is where those words are coming from. And when those words are coming from a place of looking down at someone, that's what is filthy language. Somebody might use the perfect, sweetest of words, but they could be speaking in sarcasm, they could be speaking, laughing at someone, looking down at someone and belittling someone, but they're using all the right words, the sweet words. That's not filthy language. Filthy language comes from when it's coming from a dirty place, when you're really consuming filth. And so again, it's something that we've got to be watchful of and truthful to ourselves about. When I've said this, where has it come from? Am I really trying to lift this person up? Am I being that Jun? Am I being that servant? Because that's my purpose in life, apparently. Or do we need to remind ourselves of that purpose? Because I always say we're on a path of what we call Sikhi. And those of that do identify with being on the path of Sikhi. And even if you don't, that's fine, because the message is the same for everyone. If you're on the path of Sikhi, or you're on the path of spirituality, what does that even mean? And it doesn't mean that I'm just trying to get stuck in a religion. It means that I'm trying to become a Jun. And that's why here Guru Nanak Dev Ji says Nanak Neech. Neech means that I'm speaking from a perspective of a servant, because Neech means humility. Humility means I don't see you to be below me. I'm speaking as a servant. So every time I speak, where's it coming from? Have I lost it? Am I being nasty? If I am, I'm hurting myself. I always, the term I use for myself is, you're coming away from your soul. Imagine, I think we would speak a lot less if every word we spoke was as a servant. Are these words going to be of a serving nature? Are these words to help them to get back to their soul? Or is it just to make me feel better? And for me, this is what Sikhi is. A Sikhi is to become a Jun. Asankh Nindak Sir Kareh Paar. You can start off with this one. You want to break it down first?
Well, Asankh is countless, and
Yeah.
then Nindak is like a slanderer. Sir Kareh Paar, so they carry that weight of slandering.
How do you see that weight? Like, what is that weight? Like, weight in which way?
The weight of not understanding someone and not.
Oh, wow, that's a good way of looking at it. I never looked at it like that.
Like,
It's really interesting. Because slandering is about you wanting to put somebody down. And you doing that in itself is just like weight, isn't it? And I always think that, so say if I'm saying something about you, because slandering is always going to be something negative about you. So if I'm just so focused on, and it's not even true, or it's true, but I'm just saying it in a way to really put you down. So, but I'm so focused and saying that negative thing about you. It's like I'm bringing that upon myself to become more of that, of what I'm saying about you. And that is then the weight. So I could be identifying something in you, like Guru Nanak Dev Ji saying, that's totally different. So I could say that, oh, look, Harpreet tends to get angry at something, and I'm looking at it as a John. Okay, what can we do about that? And let's look at that. Maybe come from a place of compassion. Or I could be like, she's just such an angry person. And I'm saying it and I'm looking down at you thinking like, she's just so angry. It's almost like the weight is I'm becoming more of that. It's just a vichar, like, this is from my contemplation is, because Marj talks about Sanj Krije Gunhe Keri, but here our focus is so much the negative, and it's coming from such a negative place that I'm gonna end up being angry. I'm bringing that energy. I'm taking on that energy. Just trying to like kind of look at what that weight could be. That's one of the ways like I found that for myself. And the focus is so much in a negative way about something negative. I end up becoming that myself. So all of these things it bring us more pain.
There's a way as well, like, say, if I was explaining an experience of mine to you, and I've not got the intention of looking down at that person or anything like that, I'm literally just explaining how I feel. Would you call that slandering?
That's not in India then. That's what we just said. We said in the beginning.
Yeah.
Because all become slandering only. It only becomes slandering depending on the intent and where it's coming from.
So if you're saying it in a place that you're getting a support advice on how to like deal with a situation, you wouldn't call that slandering then?
No, because you're still acting out. You're trying to resolve a situation. Yeah, because like I could, somebody could like say if I'm always angry and shouting and being a certain way, and then you go and talk to Preacher about that, but it's coming from it could be coming from such a pure place. Like Preacher, like I'm struggling with the way Veerji's speaking at the moment. Or however, like and he's getting angry, but like what can we do? And
how can we serve?
Yeah, how can we serve? And it's recognizing if it's affecting you as well. How can I try and shift through this? So it's just that is just being proactive. It's being productive. And it might be that you can't do anything with me, but you need to talk about it to be able to help yourself be in a better
Work
place.
through it, yeah.
And slandering would be like where you want somebody else to look at me in a certain way. You're intentionally like kind of, focused on in the way they then look at me. And there's no intention of resolving anything. You just want to basically, put that person down. There's plenty of other ways to say that, which we probably can't say on the recording, but, you just, and so none of this, it doesn't mean to become impractical. And I think the more impractical we become, the less then we end up, working through things. Yeah, so sometimes some Gursikhs are so scared, am I slandering? Sometimes we could just start these conversations off in a really practical way. Yeah. And like somebody told me something about someone the other day and it was really heavy. And I had to be really careful to think, okay, like, this is it. This is the moment now. I can't look down on this person for that behavior. It's a behavior, just like Guru Sahib is pointing out.
That can be changed.
Do we need to do something, but because that is that person's current behavior, to put things in place because other lives could be at risk? Yes, so that means we need this conversation. Let's separate me being judgmental about that person and let's be very clear and proactive of what potentially needs to be done. It wasn't easy, My mind was getting sucked in to thinking, I can't believe that person would do that. And really trying to say, okay, no, it's possible. These things can happen. How can they happen? It could be because of power, and then it's taken them to this or this, and they're stuck as well. Yeah, what are the practical steps we can take? Let's just keep focused on the practical steps we can take to serve. And if this person isn't willing to be supported or helped through their situation, we've got to accept that too. Yeah. But if there's something practical we need to do that where other people are involved, we need to just do that without saying, oh, what a nasty person. And we don't want to get sucked into that. But I tell you what, some things are so, when you're not expecting it, when you've put somebody on a pedestal, especially, which we shouldn't do anyway, it's their own fault. Yeah. And then the mind will do all sorts. Yeah. You've got to just try and remain balanced. And that was the word that kept coming up. Remain focused. Try and remain in a clear space. Be balanced. Then you can't get angry as well. Then you just do what needs to be done. Nanak Neech, Kahai Veechar. And this is Guru Nanak Dev Ji, just Neech in humility, saying that this is that kind of I'm just offering you this understanding of, what happens to people and the potential of what could happen to the mind, where it can end up.
I always found that useful from a nurse's perspective as well. Is that everyone's a patient and everyone's got their version of a bamari and the antidote for them. Obviously, it's wide group, but they'll have specific things they need to do with the medicine as well to heal.
Yeah.
And that really, I think
that's
helps.
True anyway,
that helps.
Amar, it says jo jo dise so rogi.
That helps me to kind of by try and work on not, like you're saying, remain focused. It helps me to try and remain focused. Yeah, so it happened when I was actually a student on placement as a nurse, and we got a patient who came in and he was with officers and he had to be handcuffed to each officer, and then when he wasn't handcuffed to officer, he had to be handcuffed to the bed. So just by that small amount of knowledge, whatever he's there for, as in why he's a prisoner, is very severe. And I remember asking my mentor, "No, what's he done?" And they said, "Why do you need to know? Is it going to change how you look after him?" And that really made me think, and it's still to this day, makes me just rein my brain, whatever my mind wants to say in, and it's just no, it's not, because I have to look after this person. No, regardless, that's what I need to do.
Yeah, I'm smiling because it just reminded me I went through such a similar situation when I did prison work, because I was a supply. So the prison weren't allowed to tell me what their crimes were, but the prisoners, they were allowed to tell me if they want to. And so there's no restriction in that. And I'd be like, I remember sometimes I just wanted to know so bad. And I'd like, trying to get them to hint to me at least. And it was the same. Well, I'm still going to treat them the way I'm going to treat them. It doesn't matter if I know what level of crime that they've done. I'm still here to try and serve them, try and tell them about living a different way. And it was really...
Yes, but the Guruji's Kirpa, helps you to treat everyone the same.
And then obviously you want to get to the point when you do know and you still can treat them the same, and there's still no effect, no difference. Which I had some of those experiences as well. Same. And I was I always say I'm very grateful. Then, Mara just kind of that grace was there when you're able to then do that. And it's such a beautiful way of living, of being, and that is being with Waheguru, isn't it? And I always say to people, don't deny those moments. Remember those moments and be grateful for them, because that is remembering Waheguru. Because the more we remember those moments and be grateful for them, we'll be able to have more of those moments. And just say that that's where the I isn't there. Give me more of those moments where the I isn't there. Yeah, so Vaarya na java ek var. Guru Nanak Dev Ji is saying that, I'm never going to be able to say in full everything about what the mind is capable of, because that would be me limiting God, because God is limitless. He's saying that I can't say in full Vaarya na java ek var. I can't even go around you once. Guru Nanak Dev Ji is saying to Waheguru, meaning that this is kind of the Veechar that I'm giving, of you could end up becoming a Paapi, a Chor, or this, a thief and a liar, and somebody that talks filth, but Mar is saying this isn't all of it. Yeah, it's just some of the Veechar that I've been able to understand. So and sometimes with people we might not ever know the full extent to why somebody is a certain way, and for our own self as well, because I've done that to myself. I try to understand so many times, trying to know exactly, but why did I have a mental breakdown? I need to know everything. And my thing is just Veechar you can do. You'll never know it. You'll never be able to say exactly, because it could be so complex. It could be a bit of this, bit of this, bit of this, bit of this, bit of this. Just here's a gist, I think that's humbling. That really helps, because sometimes you'll just go mad thinking, I need to know.
It's not necessary to know why sometimes.
But the thing, what Mar's saying is, there's sometimes you just won't know it in full.
Yeah.
You can get an idea.
You don't want to waste time in trying to find that out either, because then you're not using the next moment in the way that Guruji is trying to focus you in that moment.
Focus what you need to do now to not be so identified with it, and know that there's another way of living. You'll just get
further and further away, and you won't even, your brain won't even want to know why.
Because I remember when I tried to do that, literally, my brain was just going, so I did that when I was 38, then when I did that I was 30, then maybe it was because of what happened when I was 5, then, or maybe it was because I was 4 and then 3, and then it's just, it's okay focus. So, Jo tud paave sai palikar. I'm just going to read out the literal translations and then we'll say Fateh. So, whatever your divine will is, that doing is perfect. And if you want to go into more detail, you can watch the last week's, the last episode. And then tu Sadaa Salamat Nirankaar, you're always stable, O formless one. So Salamat means stable. So Waheguru is always there.
Anchor.
Always there. We just need to go back to it. Keep going back to it. That formless, we're beyond all of this. The mess that we create and get into it, that stillness is always there, just ready for us. And that's how Waheguru is compassionate, because he's never going to deny us entering that space of stillness. And that's the compassion, you know. There we have it. That's the 18th body. Okay. you know, it just feels like you just can never do justice to it. Like, I always think, like, God knows, like, the level that Maharaj was talking from, you know, but we can only but just try, you know, and get closer to that Sadaa Salamat from doing the bit of a jar that we are able to do. Yeah. Thank you, Benji, for joining us this week. I know it just worked out and amazing. Yeah. So, anything you'd like to say?
It's been brilliant.
Amazing. Okay then, Benji.
Right.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh Ji.
If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share and subscribe. Please donate and help spread Guruji's message. Link is in the description below. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.